everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. I am picking up literally right where I left off from last week's video. So if you have not seen last week's video, you may want to go check that out. I will link that down below in the description. But I am working on 18th century stays this week and hopefully, maybe I can actually finish them. I don't know how true that's going to be because I have about like 50 hours of rehearsal this week. We are in tech for Cinderella right now. However, I am an understudy in the show, so I'm not actually like in the show unless somebody goes out, like they're sick or injured or, you know, they just have an emergency come up or something like that. Then I will go in. So basically that means that most of this week I will probably be sitting in a rather dark theater attempting to hand sew. If you saw last video, you know what I mean. So last week I did wind up hand sewing in that rather dark theater most of the eyelets of the front pieces. I am going to finish off the last 3 eyelets by doing hand sewing for sure today, and that way I can go ahead and start putting the bones in here and the front pieces will be basically done, ready to be added on to the rest of the pieces. Now, of course, the rest of the pieces are not actually done yet. So where I'm at right now is that I have the boning channels drawn on the side front pieces right here. You can go check out my last week's video to see how I managed to do that, like with the curves and everything, because it is a little bit complicated. I still have to copy these lines to the other side. So there's obviously 2 of these, like 1 for each side. And ideally, I want the lines to be exact. So I am going to be using the pin transfer method that I have showed you guys before. I think I showed it to you in the last video a little, and I know I've shown it to you in other videos as well, but basically you put this with the lines side up onto the other side, put a whole bunch of pins in like important places, for example, all along the top edges where those lines end, and same with the bottom, but also because these are curves, these 2 sets of 2 boning channels here, I'm going to put pins along the curve so that I can kind of follow the curve. And then I just lift up a little bit of that, transfer all those little dots to the other side. Actually, since this is a back-to-back, what I'll probably do is just make sure the pins go all the way through, pick up both, and then from the back I'll see all these pins sticking out. I'll show you when I do this, but I'll transfer the dots that way. So I've got to do that on that piece, and then I also have the side back pieces that need their boning channels on. So once all of those are drawn, then I can obviously stitch them out. I am doing these all by machine because I am not that crazy. Some of you might be that crazy. I am not that crazy to also do the boning channels by hand. But I would love today, I don't know how well this is going to go because I'm actually teaching a sewing lesson tonight as well. So I would love today to get all of those boning channels on all those pieces done. And ideally, I would also love to do the eyelets on the back pieces, and I'd like to do those by machine. So I have a Viking Emerald, which is a pretty older model Viking that I don't think they make anymore, but it's just like basic Viking. And one of the things that I love about it, one of the reasons I got that machine is because Viking used to have eyelet plates. So they're little like plastic plates. You pop your feed dogs down. Again, I'll show you this in more detail once I do the eyelets, but you pop your feed dogs down and you put the little nubbin on the plate through the eyelet that you've opened with your awl, and then you can actually just put on a zigzag stitch and rotate your piece. That's why you don't want to put boning in yet. You rotate it through the machine so that it zigzags all over the edge, and it is a lot faster than doing them by hand. But again, that means that I would have to do it today because otherwise the rest of the week is probably going to mostly be hand sewing because I am potentially in rehearsals from about like 11:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night. So yeah, it's a lot. I am seriously debating about bringing my Emerald to the theater during dinner breaks because we have 2-hour-long dinner breaks. I'm debating about it. We'll see if I get to that point. But I would really, really love to be able to put all of the boning in the stays and put the stays together because that means I could start on the binding. And I know the binding has to be done by hand, so it's a perfect thing to do at the theater. Obviously, I have a lot of hours of hand sewing to do at the theater this week, but like, that'd be a good way to do it and then I could actually get these stays done this week. So keep your fingers crossed for me that all of this goes to plan. You and I both know it's not going to, because time doesn't stall and wait for me to catch up with it like I wish it would. But I am going to go ahead and start on the boning channels, and then we'll put everything else together. So right now I am in the process of putting the bones into the boning channels. You can see this funny shape that it's taking because it tells you to put the curve of the bones going like this, because then when it's against the body, it's going to want to go more like this. And if you start the bones the other way to begin with, then like these are just going to flip out at the bottom. So they are supposed to be curved like this. I am using synthetic whalebone, otherwise known as German plastic whalebone. Pretty sure I got this from corsetmaking.com, but I will link wherever it is that I did get it down below in the description. And let me show you how it is that I am cutting this and dremeling this, my first time ever using a Dremel, to put these bones into the channels. So since this is my first time using a Dremel, please be kind if I am not doing this correctly, but basically I am taking the stays and I'm laying it out. I know this doesn't all really fit in the frame right here, but I'm laying it out, and then I'm taking my roll of boning and I am just choosing a channel. So right now, let's look at this channel right here, choosing a channel, and I'm laying the bone where the channel is, so that I can find the length that I need, cutting it with, these are actually like metal cutters, but I find that they work really, really well for boning. And then with my edges here, I am taking the Dremel and I am sanding the edges, like these points off on the bones. And then I'm going over it with just a little bit of sandpaper to get like all the little bits and pieces off. I am inserting the bone into the channel. Now for these first few bones, of course, there are extra layers here. So I was trying to insert these bones specifically between the layers of like the inner canvas right in there. Now at this point, I've lost that second layer, so I can just insert it between the two layers. And now there we are, we have another bone. And this is what it looks like with all 12 bones in their boning channels in the front piece. So I unfortunately did not get a ton done yesterday like I was hoping. Time just was eaten up by other things that I had to do, like teaching that sewing lesson, which I do teach sewing lessons, by the way, like private lessons, both in person and online. So if that's something that you're ever interested in, like learning how to use your machine or getting coaching help on a project, anything like that, go ahead and send me an email. My email is down in the description, and we can always set that up, or you can DM me on Instagram at Lady Rebecca Fashions. That is something that I offer. So yeah, if you're interested, just let me know. But in any case, because I did teach that lesson and I had to prep for that lesson, I wound up only getting the boning channels all done on these two side front pieces. I have not even drawn out the boning channels yet on the side back pieces. And then you saw me put the bones into the one front piece, but I have not done the other piece. So yeah, unfortunately not too much. I'm about to head out to the first rehearsal of 6 of this week, because we have 6 days in a row of tech rehearsals. And while all of the people who are actually like in the show cast in the roles as like not understudies, you know, they get to put on their cool costumes today. I haven't even had a costume fitting, so I'm really, really curious as to when that will happen, because I think it has to happen by opening. In the last show at this theater, one of the understudies actually went on at like opening night for the lead role. So we'll see. You never know. I might not wind up going on at all, but I think I'm going to get a really cool costume. So whenever I find that out, I will try to show you that. And I might try and take you along with me to understudy rehearsals in a couple of weeks. Those don't happen until the show opens, but at that point, I think we get to do like costumes and actually run the full track on stage. I don't know how it works when we're covering multiple tracks though. So yeah, anyway. At rehearsal today, I am probably not going to do any sewing because I have to edit the stays video from last week. So I'm going to be bringing my laptop along. If I finish that video, then I'm actually probably going to attempt to start putting together my 1860s deep dive. Last month, was it last month? I'm pretty sure, like at the beginning of October, I did an 1850s deep dive. If you're interested in that video, I will link that right up here and also down below in the description. But despite the fact that it didn't really perform that well, those of you who watched it seemed to really, really love it. So I'm going to attempt to do some other eras as well. I did like a year and a half ago, I think, a while ago, I did do one on the 1830s. So I will also link the 1830s video up here and down in the description, just as a heads up. I think I'm gonna go post that on my community tab too, just so that you're all aware of it. But yeah, I need to work on the 1860s one. I don't know if I will have it done in time for this week, so there may not be a Saturday video of the week that I'm filming this, which by the time you're seeing this, you will know if that happened. Anyway, that's the hard part when you're like filming videos that are happening out of order, if that makes sense. You're filming them out of order. It's kind of funky. In any case, I am going to go walk Lion and head out to rehearsal, and I will take all that work along to see what all I get accomplished. So I was able to edit the first stays video and also do some research for the 1860s deep dive during rehearsal. Then I came home and I put all these boning channels on the side back pieces. So all of my boning channels are now complete, which is really good because I've also just about run out of the thread that I'm using for this exterior, which does mean that the back eyelets are gonna have to be a different thread because this is vintage thread, like old thread. They probably don't make it anymore. I did test to make sure it's durable, so it's not like any of these are gonna tear through. But yeah, I'm gonna have to use a different one for the eyelets. Anyway, I will see what all I get done tomorrow. So I have some slightly disappointing / annoying news. I've run out of boning. Yeah, I was putting the boning in the various pieces yesterday, and I got all of the boning in the side back piece here, almost all of the boning in this side back piece. I showed you the other day I'd put all the boning in this one front piece, and I have all of the boning in these two side front pieces. And then I have 3 pieces of boning in the other front piece, and 0 pieces of boning in both of the back pieces. So yeah, that's a problem. I also realized for some reason I thought that I bought the boning like the last time that I got it. I thought that I bought it earlier this year, but looking at receipts in my email, it's actually looking like I bought it in like summer of 2020. So that 25 yards that I purchased has clearly been used quite a bit since then because it is no longer that much. Also, of course, the other thing that I realized is that by lengthening these pieces 1.5 inches, like if you look at the front and it's like, what, 15 pieces of boning or whatever I said it was before, then multiply each of those by 1.5 inches plus add in all of the other pieces of boning times 1.5 inches. I actually require way, way, way more boning than like the 22 yards that this had specified in the pattern instructions. So yeah, I've ordered more. I went and ordered some from corsetmaking.com, which is where I got it from last time. And they do ship pretty fast. Like I ordered it last night, which was Wednesday night, and I got a notification this morning that it has been shipped and it's expected on Monday. But that's Monday, that's not this week. And I was really hoping to finish these stays this week. And obviously I can't like bind them or even really try them on that well without boning. So here is my plan. First off, I have not yet done the eyelets in the center back pieces. So that is the next thing that I'm going to do right here in this video today is I am going to do these eyelets by machine with a different, slightly different color of thread because as I mentioned before, I ran out of the other thread that I've been using for all of the boning channels and the front eyelets. So yeah, I'm gonna do those by machine today. And then I think I'm gonna go ahead and put all of the pieces together I'm also probably going to see if any of the boning channels that I have put in other pieces are the length that I need for like the 2 channels right around the eyelets here. Because if I can steal those from other pieces, or maybe if I can just like temporarily use flat steels or even cable ties or something else that I have that is boning like, then I can maybe at least try it on to get an idea if I'm anywhere in the right direction as far as fit goes. I would love to be able to like actually put these on, lace them up, and see if all of this work that I've been doing so far is for naught or not. Yeah, that is my plan for today. Hopefully I don't have to go into rehearsal until 6 p.m. so I have like a few hours here that I can work on this slash also work on the other video that I'm working on for you guys this week. But if I reach the point where I either can't try the stays on or I can try them on, but I really just cannot tell anything without that amount of boning, because we're talking about like 3 full pieces here basically that don't have boning in them, so that's a lot. So if I can't get an idea of whether the stays fit or not, like I can't actually, you know, move on with the process, then I will put this aside for a little bit. But my plan is to not actually put this video aside. So as I mentioned, it is now Thursday here, which, you know, it's halfway through the week, so I actually have a few more days left to this project. But this video won't actually come out until the following Monday for my patrons and for on Tuesdays for the rest of you guys. And so that means I have like a week and a half from this point until this video has to be done. So my idea is to switch gears and for the remainder of this week, work on a different project altogether that is obviously not related to the 18th century, because it's not like I can move on and make my bodice without having stays. So I would switch gears for like those few days. Then Monday my boning would come in, and then I'd work for like 3 days while going to tech rehearsals on the stays. See, you know, maybe I can finish them in that amount of time. Or at least the amount of time that maybe I can keep hand sewing like the tabs or whatever during the week at rehearsal. And then for the rest of that week, I would work on the other project that I'm going to start. And so I'd kind of have 2 projects running, but you would still get this second stays video followed by the video of that other project. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's my plan. And I'm going to go do some eyelets and we'll see how this plan works out. So this is a machine eyelet plate. They were available for these older Viking models here, and the little pegs that are on the bottom of this just go and sit down in the little holes underneath this foot. I don't think I can do this one-handed, and I like to use some Scotch tape and really secure that down. I've already dropped my feed dogs down, and that's going to sit in right there. I'm going to take the foot off. I do also want to reinforce the fact that there's a big difference from like a decorative eyelet like this rather than the functional eyelet that I'm going to be making here. I am actually going to set my stitch onto a zigzag, and to be honest, I forget exactly the width that I want it to be. I kind of feel like I want it to be narrower than 3. I'm going to try 2.5 and we'll see. I might have to play with that. The length doesn't matter because the feed dogs are down, so that's not going to do anything. And then I have punched my little hole for my eyelet here with my awl, and that hole is going to sit around the little peg that is right here. A lot of times when you put this eyelet hole over the peg, you will need to kind of help the threads around the little peg with your awl, and then you just start on your zigzag. And you rotate the fabric as you go. Now I have found that because I've done this so long, this foot actually winds up sitting on the fabric instead of on the peg like it's supposed to. And so every so often I need to stop because the foot will actually prevent this from fully turning, that this is in the fabric, from fully turning. So you basically just have to manhandle this around, making sure that you are pulling evenly on both sides of this fabric and holding it nice and flat. You may also have to help it up occasionally, like when you get to where you've already sewn. Now to make a whole ton more of these eyelets. All of the eyelets are finally done. They look pretty good from the outside. Definitely different than the hand-done eyelets, which are both a different color and obviously look totally different. To be honest, I think these are nicer looking, but whatever. These are the ones in the front. I did check to see if any of the bones from like other pieces would fit here, at least temporarily. They're all way, way, way too short. So I found these steels that are too long, but maybe they'll work for like a try-on so that I can at least use these and lace them up. So I am now going to go ahead and assemble all of these and try on the stays and see if they fit. Well, I assembled the stays pieces. They're looking very rotund because of the shape of the boning, and obviously I still don't have boning in this piece or either of the back pieces other than those two really long flat steels, but I laced up the back with this red ribbon, and I have laces in the front, which I think like once they're pulled tightly will be enough ribbon to go all the way up the front, hopefully. So I guess this is ready to try on-ish, other than the fact it doesn't have boning. The boning is due to arrive tomorrow, so I'm not honestly sure. I don't have time to try it on before rehearsal today, and I'm not honestly sure if I will want to try it on like when I get home or what, or might just wait until after the boning gets here. We'll see, but at least it is together. By the way, I really don't know why you put the boning in before sewing it together, because it is more difficult to sew it together with boning in. Like, that is a thing. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. And I'm also not sure, I've got to double check the instructions on like what to do about the tabs at this point, because do I cut them before I try them on? But what if I cut them wrong? You know? So I'm going to double check the instructions, figure that out, and then potentially try this on. So I did double check the instructions, couldn't find anything about how exactly you're supposed to like slash between the tabs to try it on, but it does later say that I would stitch along the seam allowance line, which is the pink line I've drawn in on here, and then trim down the seam allowances to 1/8 inch. So I'm just going to cut this all the way up to like maybe there-ish and do that for all of these, and that way I can at least try this on, because I'm not freaking binding the tabs before I can even try it on. So I have the stays on, but before I talk about all of the fit issues with the stays, let me first talk to you about the fact that they still don't have boning in 3 of the panels because FedEx decided that addresses don't matter anymore, and they dropped off my boning at some other random house. Yeah. So that's great. So I still don't have boning. FedEx right now is trying to like get through all of the hoops to be able to contact a driver, because apparently they'd also just like don't keep phone numbers of the driver handy. You have to jump through 25 people to get said phone number and wake that person up so that they realize that they're misdelivering packages, because I'll bet I'm not the only one if they drop mine off at some random other address, because you know they give you a picture of like where they drop it off. Yeah, not my house. So that was issue number 1 and put me in a really pissy mood, and I'm sure I should not have tried on the stays in that mood because the fit of the stays doesn't help. As you can see, they're closed all the way in the front and also in the back. And as you can maybe see, it is completely like not, I mean, it's too big here, so it's not doing anything. It's still being bulbous around me, like in this entire area where the bones were, you know, round. And then it's just coming straight down and digging right into the hips like stays do. 'Cause stays are stupid. Yeah. I'm really curious, because I know there's a lot of you out there who prefer stays to Victorian corsets, and I would really love to know like what your body shape is, because maybe there's a type of body shape where stays do fit better than Victorian corsets, and then maybe there's a type of body shape where like Victorian corsets fit better than stays. But I'm definitely in the Victorian corsets camp, because Victorian corsets don't come down, hit, you know, your hips or your like excess around here, etc., and then just flip up all their little stupid bones. Like, what the, I mean, okay, this one doesn't have bones in it, but like, these have bones in them. What the heck? What is this supposed to do? Just be little flippies? Do I have little swimmers right here? So yeah, I'm definitely feeling like all of the work of this last 2 weeks has been completely for naught. I don't know how to fix this. I mean, taking it in would be great if I didn't already have boning channels in it. So that's one thing, because obviously they need to be taken in, because you can't lace your stays all the way up and still have excess room. That's like not a thing. I have no idea whatsoever how to fix this problem. Like, haven't the foggiest. Here I was hoping that I'd be able to, like, you know, bind some tabs this week while at the rest of Tech Week. I don't know how to fix this. This video might end here. And if it does, tell me your advice on how do I fix this. And if it doesn't, I guess I will have figured out how to fix this. So, yeah. So I have a very slight update to the whole, you know, boning debacle, which is that Corset Making sent a replacement roll of boning today, UPS, not FedEx. So I have more boning. So that means that I technically can get back to this stays project. But that means obviously fitting the stays to make sure they actually fit. So it is now Saturday evening. I don't know how much of this I can actually get done by tomorrow night, when I literally have to edit these last clips into this video. I've already edited the rest of the video that you've watched so far, but this video is going out to my patrons on 2 days from now, less than 48 hours from now. So we need to get something done here. So I have the stays. I undid the front lacing so that I can kind of like get to things. And I guess I'm gonna have to start taking out some of the boning, because you all kind of recommended from my Instagram video that I posted to I think a lot of people said to take in on this seam right here, because this one is really pretty straight. And if I take it in, it will mostly, I think, just kind of like eat where this boning channel is on this side back piece. And yeah. And then some people also were recommending that, because what I'm dealing with is like more excess here than there is here. I mean, it's too big everywhere, but there's definitely, it's more too big around like the rib cage than it is around the bust, because that's where it's not even hardly like touching me around the rib cage. So some people were recommending that instead of keeping the seams in the front to side front piece, instead of keeping them straight as they would do in the 18th century, at least as far as everything that I've ever seen, but people were recommending to actually like curve this piece in through the rib cage where I need it to be significantly smaller. So I think I might give that a try as well. It seems to me like a lot of these places where pieces went together, like for example, the side front to side back piece, it seems like, hopefully you can see this, like there's a lot of stitching here that is like between the boning channel versus where the edge of the seam allowance was supposed to be. And it seems like that is part of the problem. But then at the same time, like, I can't stitch directly on the edges of the boning channel is my guess, because there's probably something in the movement where like if you are thick there because of the boning, then you're not going to get that movement on a seam, like it would jam up against each other. I don't know, but that's just what it seems like in my head. And then of course it is too long, like everywhere. It's too long. But I think it's really not so much an issue of it being actually too long up here as it is not going low enough. a few of you were kind enough to send me some images of like other stays, and what I was noticing from some of these other stays is the fact that the waist, like your natural waist, should not be where the tabs start, where the tops of the tabs start. It should actually like curve in and then curve back out. So maybe that's part of like why taking it in partway through makes sense, because the waist would be like up here and then these would get larger. So I think I want to somehow experiment in that. I'm not really sure how to go about doing that, but I think how I'm going to start is take all of the boning pieces out of the channels that are next to a seam to give me room to just stitch seams, like basically make bigger seam allowance, stitch seams differently. And we'll see what happens with that and if that makes the fit any better. So I've done quite a bit of alterations on the stays now. For this side front seam here, I actually undid part of the seam from like about here to here because I felt like down here it was fitting pretty right, but it was here that it was like puffing away from the body. So I undid that portion of the seam, and you can see now I've actually like pulled up the front section farther than the other section, and then with this other section right here I just used like directly on the seam allowance line. I just sewed that down once I had pulled the other one up and pinned it. So I haven't actually taken in anything from like this piece on this seam. I obviously have this curved bit here, but then going with all of the other seams, I have taken it in like or 1/4 of an inch basically on like each one. I think you can see the old seam here compared to the new seam, like the threads from the old seam. So that's how much I took it in on that one. Same with the next one. Actually, no, wait, I lied. This back one I took in a full boning channel. So I've basically removed a full boning channel on both the side back and the back piece so that I could take it in. So it's like a full 3/8 of an inch on each piece that I took in, because I want a lacing gap. Like that's what you're supposed to have. You're supposed to have a little lacing gap. So yeah, that's how much I took it in there. I have not changed the shape of any boning channels yet, even though I know I am going to do that because of the whole little flippy problem. Like this is still, that's not going to do anything at all, having those bones be separate bones rather than like these. And remember how I was talking before about how these boning channels here, they curve down here at the bottom? Well, first off, with the curve, it means that the bones are trying to twist, like the rest of the bones, they're trying to twist. But also if I didn't curve them in, I could just continue those bones down into the tab. So that makes way more sense to me. So I will do that, but I wanted to try it on before I really mess with boning channels, just because that's kind of harder to redo than seams. And then the one other thing that I did, so first off, when I was taking in those seams, I actually didn't take it in all the way. I took it into where my waist was sitting, which is about like, I don't know, a bit above where the tabs are. I took it into there and then I curved it out so that it was like small seam allowance by the time it gets to the very bottom here. I did that both on this seam and on this seam. And then I also cut the tabs up here a little higher. So I think you can see the pink markings that are here. I've actually cut past them now. And I mean, like with some of these, there's actually bones that stop there, which seems like a weird place for a boning channel anyway, but those bones I haven't really cut down yet, so I will have to do that. But yeah, and then I also put the rest of the bones in the front piece and the 2 back pieces that did not yet have them. So everything now has bones in it, and it's ready for me to try on again. However, it's 11:30 p.m. and I don't feel like doing that right now. So I'm going to try it on tomorrow morning and we'll see how it works. Oh my gosh, what a difference those changes have made. Like, it's fitting a lot better through the body right now. It's not really like digging into my hips anymore. I still think that something is not right around here. For one thing, I mean, we still have our flappy little tabs going on, which obviously that can't be right. There's just no way that that can be right. So I think that changing some of the boning layout should probably help that. The back is not fully closed right now, but it is pretty close. Like, it's a little closer, honestly, than I would want. I do think that I need to still take this in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, the front is closing pretty much how I want it to. Like, I wanted a little gap here. I wanted it to be basically closed here, which is what it's doing. And then I do have a little gap here, but that's probably because I didn't actually secure this bottom ribbon on here. So yeah, I think that that would go away pretty quickly and fit nicely there. But I think that the height is even pretty close. I mean, there is seam allowance on here right now. So like there's a 1/2 inch of this. My bones are all shifty because I haven't secured them, but there's a 1/2 inch of this that would go down, would go away. And I think that once that goes away, that we're pretty much at the level that I want it to be, or that historically it usually was. So yeah, I think that's pretty close. So I think my plan is to take this in just a tiny bit more and then figure out how I can change these boning channels. Because the thing is, like right now, I do feel like it's giving me a nice conical shape, but there must be something that can be done about these. And granted, like, because I haven't secured the bones in there, what's happening is that they are pushing even lower. But even still, like, this bone right here, this is one of those curvy channels I was talking about. By the time it gets to about where my finger is, the bone flips in the channel. And this bone is actually going, like, past where the bend of my waist is and just flipping up. So it's really not doing anything. If I can zoom in on this part, I will show you what I'm talking about, but I know it's not right. Like, that boning channel makes 0 sense whatsoever. So something needs to be done about that. And I think that having it go into the tab is the answer. So maybe it can stay the same until about like here and then go into the tab. I think I'm gonna attempt to put a pin right about here so that I know that's where it has to migrate off its path. And then this is actually the one tab that I still literally have not boned at all, but its friend on this side is actually doing pretty okay. And this again has like this separated boning, but I feel like this one, because the bones are longer than on this tab, they're doing a little more, whereas this tab is still flying away. So maybe that means that I only have to move like 2 boning channels or 2 partial boning channels and get that right. And then just to take in one of the seams just a little bit more. And I think at that point that I will have stays that actually fit. All right, so it's been like a couple of hours of doing all of these different alterations. For one thing, in that like center back to back side seam, I took it in 1/4 inch, like on each panel. So in other words, I took out another total of 1 inch fully. And then on the side seam here, I actually like shaped in a little bit right here. So like just where my fingers are here, between that point, I took it in another like 1/4 inch, so 1/2 inch on each side, just curving it out that little section and then tapering out, trying to get like a little bit more waist reduction. I don't know if it was successful. Probably really need to study it in the mirror, but we'll see. And then the biggest thing that I did was to reshape the boning channels. So I actually wound up redoing 3 different boning channels because I knew this one right here to this tab, I knew I wanted the bones to like go from the bodice into the tab like I showed you before. But I also realized that I had another bone that was doing the flippy thing, which was this one right here in like this front tab. And that was because this was curving in to these straight bones here. It was curving curving in like this, but then there was nothing at all in this last like inch of this tab, so that last inch wasn't functional at all. So I recurved it just from here into the edge of that tab. I honestly don't know if it's really making a difference. However, I think these bones right here, recurving these out, is making a huge difference. So these, I wound up taking it out like all the way up to here because of taking the seam in. So I wound up having to move them even higher because of where I took the seam in. It wound up in the boning channel. But yeah, now these are going like actually into the tabs, and the tabs aren't flipping. Look at that, no flipping. And then on one of these sides, this side right here, I went ahead and I closed off this one because these are the short tabs. Like this is it was the second shortest bones in here. So it is a tab that's basically just boned in the tab. And by closing it off, I noticed that like the flipping is happening less, but even without it closed off, this one's not closed off, it was doing pretty okay. But yeah, this one is doing a lot less. So I think I'm pretty happy with everything. I'm gonna go study it in the mirror for a little bit, let you know if there's anything else that I want to change. So I just looked in the mirror and everything, and yeah, actually I think it's looking pretty good. I did want to show you, I did widen the lacing gap just a little bit because of like taking it in even more in the back. I think this is a pretty good lacing gap now, and it's nice and even all the way from top to bottom, which is the goal. I also really like how this shapes over like my butt. I don't know, I feel like that just presents a nice line, which is silly because like when you're wearing a bum pad, obviously that doesn't matter. But yeah, I feel like everything is looking a lot better now. I do think I am getting that tiny bit of waist reduction here, which is cool from doing that little take-in. And I think the height is looking pretty good. I know it's probably still, honestly, a little on the tall side, though again, there is seam allowance that I can't fold down now because I haven't done any of the edges of the boning, so like it's all the boning is mostly picking up, but like right here I'm folding it down just a little bit between bones, and I think that is giving a pretty good height. I don't know that I would really feel that comfortable even if it went lower, even if stays technically are supposed to go a little lower. But yeah, overall I think we're probably pretty good here. I think probably what I'm going to do is tomorrow, while you're watching this video, well, you are if you're my patron, you'll be watching this video, I will probably wear these around the house for a while, maybe like at least an hour or two if I can, just to try to see how they fit before, you know, finishing it off by like closing off all the boning channels and doing the binding. Also, obviously, one thing that I haven't shown you at all on this are straps. I did make my eyelets for the straps. I have not yet put on any straps, obviously. I do feel like the eyelets are a little far out for where straps would be. So I probably will try straps on this, but it may very well be that I forego the straps and just don't use straps on these at all. I have straps on the pair of stays that I won, and I have straps on the pair of 1780s stays that I made. I don't really feel like they do anything. I do not have straps on my really old stays, the first ones I ever made. And again, it doesn't seem like there's any difference whatsoever. If anything, I would say that those first stays don't ride up quite as much, so maybe there's something good about not having straps, and obviously they also don't get in the way of necklines because there's no straps. And I have found that with other stays they do tend to show in like the wider 18th century necklines. So we'll see. But my plan for videos on this, obviously this video is going to end now because it's Sunday and my patrons get to watch this video tomorrow, Monday. So I'm going to edit these last clips here and put this video together and end this week. And then next week is an entirely different project. And honestly, probably potentially the week after that may also be a different project. It will depend on how these feel after wearing them for a couple of hours tomorrow. If I wear them and everything is just dandy, then that means that I can go ahead and start building my Brunswick over the stays, even without having the binding on. Like, that's not going to change the way they fit. If, on the other hand, I do find that anything needs to be changed with these, then I can't start the Brunswick tomorrow, which is my plan. And I will instead start another interim project. So that's the problem with like not having the gap week with these videos that I normally have. Normally when you watch these vlogs, I have finished the vlog a full week before you watch them. But anyway, this one is ending here. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video and all of its ups and downs. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support my channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Mirage, and my newest Edwardian level patron, Laura. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!